Recording in progress.
Allison? Welcome, everyone. Tonight is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Land Use Committee. Here in the chamber, I'm Andrea Kelly. I'm the chair of the committee. We also have with us from Ward 1, Councillor Allison Leary. From Ward 2, Councillor Tariq Lucas. I'm from Ward 3. From Ward 4, Councillor Randy Block. Nobody here right now from Ward 5. Oh, except
No.
we may have online. Councillor Downs online. Sorry, Councillor Downs. I didn't look down at my Zoom screen. Councillor Alan Lobovitz from Ward 6. We will have Mark Laredo from Ward 7 virtually for part of the meeting. I'm not sure if he's here right now. Not yet. And in the chamber, we have Councillor Stephen Farrell from Ward 8. Some people have suggested that they would like us to be done by 9 so that we can go home and watch the presidential debate. I'm just throwing that out there so that people can keep their comments brief if they're amongst those who would like to make it home for the debate. The first 3 items we have should be fairly quick and simple. They are all requests for extensions of time. The first one is item number 325-24, which is a request for an extension of time to exercise special permit number 446-22 at 113 Grove Street. Do we have a motion to approve this request? Councillor Lobovitz. Thank you. We can do a request on a voice vote, right? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? That one passes. The second one is item number 326-24, which is a request for extension of time to exercise special permit number 227-23 at 107-109 Elliott Street. That's in Ward 5.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Downs. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes too. And our final request for an extension of time is docket item number 327-24, request for an extension of time to exercise special permit number 265-23 at 43 Craft Street. Councillor Leary, that's technically in your ward, if you'd like to. Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Can I remind my colleagues to use mic? You cannot be heard if you don't.
Yes, shall do.
Right, sorry.
Okay.
Usually I'm pretty good about it.
Okay, on to the nitty gritty. First item we have before us tonight is number 328-24, which is a request to vertically extend a non-conforming side setback at 228 Grove Street. First, we'll hear from planning. Pat, I believe that's you.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Hopefully everyone can see and hear me. This is petition 328-24, a special permit for 228 Grove Street. The petitioners are seeking to construct a second-story addition to the existing residence, which will vertically extend a non-conforming side setback, which requires special permit relief. In reviewing this request, the council should consider if the proposed addition, which will vertically extend a non-conforming side setback, will be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure is to the neighborhood. This is an aerial view of the area, which is in Auburndale and lies within the Auburndale Historic District. The zoning of this property is single residence 1. The area is primarily residential, but there's a bit of a mix in this area in terms of zoning and use, with Riverside Station, a golf course, and a few other commercial uses and other things mixed in there along with the residential uses. The plan proposed here was reviewed and approved by the Auburndale Historic District Commission at a meeting in May, where the commission voted unanimously to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the project proposed here. This is the site plan. The site is improved with a 2-story single-family dwelling which was built in a colonial style and constructed in 1922. The lot is sloped downwards a bit from the front to the rear, and there is a shed at the rear of the property. There's a curb cut and paved driveway to the left of the house off of Grove Street. There are a few existing nonconformities on the site, including the frontage, the lot size, and both side setbacks. The left side setback is 8.7 feet, where 12.5 feet is required, and the right side is has an 8.3 foot setback, where 12.5 feet is required. This is the proposed site plan. The petitioner proposes to construct a 2nd-story addition over an existing sunroom on the 1st floor. The majority of the addition will be within the existing footprint of the building, with the exception of a small cantilevered portion, which will extend beyond the footprint with supporting columns. So about 28 square feet will be outside of the existing footprint. All of the setbacks will remain the same as they are now, so they won't be getting smaller, but the addition will vertically extend the non-conforming side setback on the right. So it does still require special permit relief. And there'll be no change to the height or number of stories. The relief is limited to the vertical extension of the setback. This is the front elevation. This will be, the addition will be visible from the street, so the setback remains the same, but it will be built up vertically here. This is the left side. This setback will remain the same. There won't be any work visible from this vantage point. This is the right side, which will be most impacted by the petition proposed here. The floor area ratio will go up a bit from 0.24 to 0.25, increase of 182 feet, and approximately 28 feet of that will be added impervious. Lot coverage will increase from 12.7% to 13.1%. Open space will decrease slightly from 70% to 69%. And this is the rear with the addition here. Overall, staff have no significant concerns with the work proposed here. It's mostly within the existing footprint, so the amount of impervious added is minimal. It doesn't reduce any of the existing setbacks other than extending one upward. And it complies with other dimensional regulations, including height, FAR, and open space. So we believe any impact should be a fairly minimal negative impact on the abutters. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kemet. Let me take this moment to introduce, I think she did it thoroughly, but that was Kat Kemet of our planning department. We have other planning department staff on Zoom with us. Joe Iadenisi, Katie Wewell are here. And then from our law department, we have Jonah Temple. I also welcome Councillor Maliki, who is a ward councillor from Ward 3. Welcome to join our meeting. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to this? Or before that, how about the petitioner? Jane, is that you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Hi, good evening. I'm Jane Grover. I'm the architect working with the homeowners, the Nevins, at 228 Grove Street. I would like to point out that in Kat's presentation, she showed a plan that was for another project. I'm not sure what project that was, but I think that the elevations speak for themselves. And I can describe that what the homeowner would like to do is simply extrude the existing sunroom to be a 2nd story. And then we would like to add a 4.2 feet to the back without going closer to the side setback. only going back 4.2 feet. The purpose of this room is to give twin daughters their own bedrooms. Don't think I need to go into that in detail, but it'll be a relief for the family. And the additional 4.2 feet is so we can actually put a bed in this room. It's not a very large footprint. And that's it. I hope that describes the project. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
We appreciate that, Ms. Grover. Thank you very much. Somebody may ask you a question. We'll see. I'd also like to note and welcome Councillor Laredo, who has just come into the chamber. Now I will ask again if there are any members of the public who would like to speak on this project.
Sorry, this is Kat again. Thank you, Jane, for pointing that out. My apologies. I did carry over the site plan for a previous project, so sorry about that.
It doesn't, because this is such a straightforward project, it doesn't seem like it's terribly important.
But I'm glad we're now all on the same page. So thank you for raising it, Ms. Grover, and Kat for commenting on it. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this? If not, we'll take it into committee and see if some of the city councilors have comments on it. Councilor Leary?
It looks like we didn't actually see it, but from what was the description, it seems like a very reasonable project for an expanding family, and I totally get the 2 separate bedrooms. So I have no issues with it.
Thank you, Councilor Leary. Councilor Block?
This is in my ward. I'm very familiar with this stretch of Grove Street. This is a very modest proposal. And the Auburndale Historic District Commission has done its work, which we always appreciate. At the appropriate time, I'd be happy to move to close the public hearing and to approve the petition.
Thank you, Councilor Block. Councilor Laredo? President Laredo?
Briefly, Madam Chair, since I missed part of the discussion, I'm going to abstain on the vote, but I want to be very clear, that's no view on the project itself. It's just simply not being part of the full discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the committee? If not, I'm happy to take the motion from Councilor Block to close a public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? No. And now Councilor Block, your motion to approve.
Yes, so moved.
So moved. Let's hear the findings and the conditions from planning. Council order.
Yes, so for findings, there's just the one, the proposed vertical extension of the nonconforming setback is not substantially more detrimental than the existing nonconforming structure because the project adheres to other applicable dimensional regulations such as FAR and height, and the addition which extends the nonconformity is largely within the footprint of the existing dwelling. And it would be the standard conditions of plan referencing, building permit conditions, and occupancy.
Thank you, Ms. Kemet. Does anyone have any questions about those standard conditions? If not, let's take a vote.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lovovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Laredo. Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone, and good luck on that project, and thank you for being here, Jane Grover.
Can you please explain the how much time now, what happens after this?
What happens after this is it will come to a full council meeting, usually at our next regularly scheduled meeting. The full
Mhm.
council will vote on it then, all 24 members, and then you'll be able to move forward.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you again. The next item is number 329-24, which is a request to waive 2 parking stalls at 15 to 17 Playstead Road. Planning?
Good evening. I'm Joe Adonisty, and I'll be covering this proposal. So this is 1517 Playstead, and it is a proposal to convert garage to habitable space, which requires waiving of 2 parking stalls. So that is the only item of relief before us, is that it requires waiving 2 parking stalls. It will need to go to the ZBA to get a variance from 1995 altered. That will change their approved plans. And the reason why it needs to waive 2 parking stalls is that it is converting some existing garage space on the first floor to habitable space. So they lose 1 parking spot. But because they are held to the plans approved through the variance, now they don't have that locked in approval for only providing 3 spaces, and now are required to provide a total of 4 spaces as a 2-family use. And with that, they only have room in their driveway to provide room for 2. So some background, the variance allowed them to waive the minimum lot area per unit, as the lot is undersized at just over 5,100 square feet, and that allowed them to have their 2-family dwelling. Last year, they submitted a building permit to underpin and finish the basement, which basically meant that they wanted to lower the floor of the basement. But they went a little bit beyond the scope of that and closed off the garage. So this would be relief after the fact, which I confirmed by talking to the Inspectional Services Department and taking a look at the property and seeing that the garage is in fact closed off. So the bottom floor is habitable space. And just this past Friday, we had a complaint to ISD reporting 2 short-term rentals on the premise. One was confirmed to be active, and a violation has been issued. So with that, and I know Jonah Temple, city from the city law office, is on the call as well, if he needs to clarify any of this. But typically, the guidance is to separate any zoning violations from what is actually before us. And the proposal here is for relief of 2 parking stalls for a 2-family. But I do recognize and want to acknowledge that we do have confirmation of at least 1 Airbnb operating on the premise there.
Thank you, Joe.
So
Are you-
oh, sorry.
Sorry,
ahead.
I'm not sure. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Do you want to finish what you were saying?
Yeah, I'll finish if the council, unless the council sees fit, I'll just finish my presentation and then move towards questions, because maybe I'll be able to answer some, but if
Perfect,
Law
yes.
needs to interject or if there's other questions, that's fine.
Please do. Finish your presentation.
So the criteria to consider are that the specific site is an appropriate location for the conversion of garage to habitable space, requiring a waiver for 2 parking stalls, that the conversion of the garage to habitable space requiring a waiver for 2 parking stalls as developed and operated will not adversely affect the neighborhood, that there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians created by the conversion of garage to habitable space, requiring a waiver for 2 parking stalls, that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved in the conversion of garage to habitable space, requiring a waiver for 2 parking stalls. And lastly, that literal compliance is impracticable due to the nature of the use or the location, size, width, depth, shape, or grade of the lot, or that such exceptions would be in the public interest or in the interest of safety or protection of environmental features. This is a look at where the property is. It is just on the city line at a corner of the bend of the road just off Tremont Street for Plaisted Road. As you can note, a lot of the other lots are undersized in the area. So street parking is at least somewhat common, definitely on Tremont Street and in some of the other adjacent streets as well. It is in a multi-residence 1 district as well. This is a look at what the site plan is. It is both the existing and proposed. There's no real site work going on as all of the work is internal. This does dimension the parking stalls that they are able to provide. The total depth of the driveway is 34.3 feet. So they would have to go back a total of 3.7 feet in order to provide adequate room to have 2x2 parking and layout there. And something in speaking with the Inspectional Services Department, who's been to the site more often than me and knows a little bit better about these matters, is that this retaining wall on the north of the property could potentially present an issue with moving that retaining wall back and providing that 2x2 spaces, as it is quite steep with heights of around 8 feet up there at the northern or rear lot line. So you have a significant amount of fill, and if you start to move back and up the slope, that you'll need to kind of hold back, and especially if this wall is not in the best shape, removing some of that fill that's back there might potentially cause some structural issues. But a structural engineer would definitely need to be involved in the design of those walls and in the review, and definitely not something planning could say definitively on that is a good or a bad idea to move that wall back. Just want to relay some of the concerns that ISD had about that potential alternative to the relief here. Otherwise, something to note on this petition as well is that while they do have potentially room for some compact cars there, any sort of future work that they or operation of the site that they do, there is the potential for having cars overhang onto the sidewalk, and that would be handled as a parking violation or a zoning violation. And that is at the petitioner's own risk that they do not incur that. There are some limitations to parking on the street, such as the overnight restrictions and 2-hour restrictions at certain times for street parking. As one of the things if they do choose to legalize and continue with the city's, short-term rental usage, one of the things to note is that they do need to describe the parking on site to the potential renters, but they don't necessarily, per the letter of that ordinance, need to provide it on site as it's written. Lastly, a quick look at the floor plans. This is just what's proposed, where there was a garage, is now shown as a family room downstairs. But otherwise, this is just the basement. No work has been conducted that we know of or has been reported on the first floor or the area above the first floor for this property. And this is the matter that is before the council, is the work done to convert that garage to the family room there. I will turn it back to the council at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Iadinisi. I'd like to also welcome Councilor Maria Greenberg from Ward 1. This project is in her ward. She used to be on the Land Use Committee. She's on Zoom. And Councilor Pam Wright from Ward 3 has joined us also. Mr. Temple, I would go next to the public, but I wonder if you want to speak now about some issues, or would you like to wait until we've heard from the petitioner and then give us some thoughts?
Let me give you a couple brief thoughts right now, and then you can decide how you want to proceed from there. So usually I'm here telling you to not think about the zoning violations and to focus on the relief requested. Here, this is a little different because there is an ongoing active zoning violation as to the use of the property that's not going to be remedied by the issuance of this special permit. So I would recommend ultimately that this item be held so that ISD can confirm ultimately that the property is in compliance with the zoning ordinance and that the violation is remedied.
Thank you very much for that heads up. I appreciate your warning on that and probably tend to agree with you. Let's hear now from the petitioner. Is there anybody here? Could you come to that microphone and turn it on, and feel free to make your case and explain what's going on. Again, give us your name and address, and then
Push? Okay. Okay, I'm Zen, and this is my wife Yanting. We are the owner from 15-17 Plaisdale Road. First of all, I just want to maybe clarify a little bit about the Airbnb situation. We do have an Airbnb on site, and we registered in 2022, and we re-registered in 2023. But for this year, we had a baby last November, at the end of November, and I completely forget to renew the registration. That's why where the violation is come from, because I thought I always had the registration with the inspection service. And we did receive the violation notice yesterday, and we have canceled out all the future listings. So we are compliant with the regulation. And I mean, the inspection service can confirm that, but yeah.
I'm gonna add some notes to this. So basically, I was the one at home and I got this notice yesterday, and I was shocked. I told them we registered, and they said you did not this year. And then, I talked to my husband, and he realized he totally forgot about this. And we completely, apologize for this, and we terminate all the future listings at this point. And, before we get this thing re-registered and compliant, we would not take any future listings. So this is not a worry. And another thing that I want to, mention is that I know that you guys worried about, the usage of the driveway because of the short-term rental situation. So we have one car limit, space for the short-term rental. And we currently only have one car, and we have no plan to add another car. So if you guys worry about, the usage of the car from the short-term rental is going to add trouble to the public, pedestrian walk, that should be no problem at all. And this garage space is not gonna, add any benefit to our usage at all, because whenever you go inside of the garage, you're likely get your car hit if it's, more bigger than a compact car. And another thing is that when you back into the garage, you always have to remove all the cars in the driveway in order to get that garage getting used. So it is useless to us. That's the reason why we're converting the garage to, indoor space, because it's useless. And it's that garage, even if we keep that garage space, it's not going to alleviate any usage of the driveway.
And actually, the previous owner who lived there for 30 years, he never parked his
Yeah,
car
he
in
never
the
parked
garage.
his car into the
The
garage.
garage is just a storage.
And that garage originally was, 18 feet depth, which is smaller than the standard or required size.
thank you for coming, and congratulations on the baby.
Thank you.
I believe your lawyer may have his hand raised.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I do. Actually, I was delightfully surprised by how well my clients spoke about this. I don't really know.
Could I
Right.
interrupt you for 1 second and ask you just to identify yourself? and
Oh,
give us
I'm
your name and
sorry.
address?
Yeah, sorry. Robert Pellegrini, Bridgewater, Massachusetts. I am the client for the applicant, Yanting and Zen. And once again, I just was gonna add a few things, but I think my client handled themselves pretty well. I think the only thing I would add, just in case they didn't bring that up, is that the apartment is 500 square feet, which is quite small. And what you could probably see on the site plan is that the grade, which was also mentioned, is approximately 10 feet from front to back. So we felt that, there were a lot of issues obviously caused by that grade. Moving that retaining wall would be a very big deal, and seeing that the scope of work is really minimal and it's all interior, just to convert to a place where their child can play. It seems like it would be quite an undertaking to try to move that. It's also worth noting that if you continue the grade to the northeast corner of the property, it's actually 20 feet from the beginning of the driveway. So there's really no other location for their child to really play safely. As you could see on the plan, has several retaining walls on it, and it's very very steep from front to back. One of the other issues is that due to that, there was a water issue. When it rains a lot, there's a flow of water that sort of comes down and was kind of creeping in under the garage door, which is why they needed to remediate that previously. Other than that, I don't have anything more to add.
Thank you, Mr. Pellegrini. Do you want to say something else?
Yes, about the moving the retaining wall. We did reach out to a couple of structural civil engineers on that before we decided to go to this route. The structural engineer who did the entire house, he asked our contractor to test the underpinning of the bigger retaining wall on the back. It was very shallow, and he said he was not comfortable redesigning a new retaining wall for us by moving it. And I also contacted another civil engineer, and he said, based on the picture, he's not recommending removing the retaining wall, but moving the retaining wall back because it's gonna compromise the integrity of the bigger retaining wall on the back, as inspectional service said.
Thank you. I think we get that picture from everyone. Let's see if there are any members of the public who would like to speak or ask questions about this project. Is there anyone in the chamber who came here for this project? Could you come up to the microphone? Could you folks just step aside and let other people speak too? And you're here if we need you to answer any other questions. Thank you. Just give us your name and address, please. Can you turn that on at the base?
My name is Pat Kelly. I live at 23 Playstead Road. I think there's a lot of issues that are confusing to us neighbors. First of all, I've been in the house since 1969, and the garage was used by a gentleman who backed his station wagon in every night. So that's a moot point as far as putting a car in the garage. One of the other points is the garage and obviously the basement has already been turned into an apartment per se. It's not, I think that your understanding is it's being talked about. But if you went on Airbnb, you'd find it. And it's been rented. So, give us some help with this. And there's a lot of other issues as far as the parking goes. Parking's horrible in Playstead Road. I've seen 4 cars in their driveway. What happens in the winter? When you can't park overnight, you can't shovel snow. I don't know. I could go on and on for a couple of hours, but I won't.
Thank you for coming. I'm not going to do a back and forth right now. I'm going to continue to hear from other people from the public. If it's important for you to speak again later, I'll be happy to let you do it. Somebody else had hit the hand up back there or not? Yes, sir. Come on forward.
Dawn? Dawn Vito, I'm 10 Placehead Road right across from
I
them.
think it's not on.
What's that?
Can we all hear him?
Dawn Vito,
Perfect.
10 Placehead Road. I live across the street.
Perfect.
Patty pretty much summed up is what's going on. Parking has always been an issue. That's the biggest concern because the corner that they're on, they're using is overnight parking and it's, it's just a tough corner to take, especially for emergency vehicles and whatnot. I think we've learned our lesson with the retaining walls in Newton. So I don't know if you're aware, we had an issue behind my father's house, but as far as we got to just make sure we can free up that corner. That's pretty much it. I mean, there's been building going on, is it 3 years? 3 years now, so it's always something. So I'm hoping to begin some kind of solution.
Thank you, Mr. Vito. I believe you sent us a letter also.
Yes.
Name sounds familiar, so thank you for reaching out and
Yeah, no
letting
problem.
us know your thoughts.
Yep.
We appreciate when the public gets involved in this.
Problem.
Anybody else? Alex Rolfe. Alex, the clerk will make you be able to speak. You need to accept this request.
Hi, I'm Alex Rolfe. I live at 34 Placehead Road, so across the street and a couple doors down. I think as a zoning matter, I have no objections whatsoever to the proposed change. I think they want to park in their driveway instead of inside. They're doing the same thing that everyone else on the street is doing, and I don't see a problem with that. I think none of the houses on the street conform to the current zoning rules, and so the idea that we need to enforce 2 parking places per unit is kind of silly if they don't want it. It's their responsibility to park legally. So if they want the change, they can deal with it, but I don't think the city should be forcing this on them, forcing the inside parking spaces on them if they don't want it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Elaine?
Hi, I hope you can hear me fine. This is Elaine Young and lives in 7 Placehead Road, and which is like 2 houses away. In general, I support this pension. Like the reason was because I think as far as I'm aware, they only have 1 car for their families. I never see them parked, their cars like parked in the corner. Basically, I see them parked like next to the garage door. And I do not see them use the garage though. And this is an area like we have a lot of houses like which do not have a garage. To be honest, I wish I have, but I don't have. But in general, I think, and in terms of their parking, I do not see there's an issue. I'm supportive of this. But overall, it is true, like that corner, and it's a little bit busy. I think mostly, sorry, just to add one more point, mostly this is the parking from the neighbors from Boston side instead of this Newton side, because in that side, people just park on the streets overall.
Are you all set, Elaine?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to come. Anybody else? More people living in this neighborhood of Placehead Road than we were aware. If not, let's take this into the committee for some comments from the city councilors. Lucas, first.
Thank you. Question to Mr. Pellegrini. I just want to make sure we're all speaking the same language here. Your clients live at 1517 Placehead Road, is that correct, sir?
Yes.
And there is one Airbnb, if you're looking at the property on the right-hand side, is that correct?
I believe that is correct, but I'd ask my clients to confirm.
Okay, he just shook his head to confirm that. And
Yes.
then the former garage, which has already been converted into an Airbnb, that's on the left side of the property, correct?
No, I do not believe that's been converted to anything at all at this point. It's certainly not an Airbnb. There's only the one 500 square foot apartment. The plan for the conversion is to make it a family room.
Okay, but we heard testimony from some of the neighbors. They sent me a link to the Airbnb webpage for the downstairs former garage unit.
Okay.
So has work already been done?
I'm gonna have to ask my client to speak about that. I'm not aware of that.
Would you like to come back to the microphone to answer some of these questions as soon as we're done with them all? That might be helpful, as your attorney's not as familiar with it as you are. Councilor Lucas, are you done with your questions? for him?
No, I am not.
Okay.
I just want to make sure we're all clear on what is there right now.
So most of the work of the basement is already done. And we thought about using that space as an Airbnb place. And we listed for a little bit, but that list is already unlisted. So that is no use at all. And our parents, his parents is coming October, and they're gonna occupy the basement at all, for like, next to, half a year at least. And, for the other side, that is the one that is currently, it was listed, and that was the one that getting noticed from like from the city inspectional office, and they gave me a notice about that. And that one is already in, taken care of. I'm not gonna take future listings unless I get that thing clear out. And in terms of the parking in the corner, I do think it is a big issue for the Plaisdale Road. We occasionally park our cars on the streets only because, the summertime parking on the driveway, we get, it's southern facing, we get too much, heat in the, car. So sometime in the summer, we like to park under the shades of the trees. And for the corners, we get a lot of the, people coming to ticket the people that, park their cars illegally from the, I believe they come from Boston area too. And that actually, gave me a lot of trouble as well, because I get ticket, even I have the sticker on my car, I get tickets 3 times without any reason. That gave me so much trouble because I have to appeal it, and that takes a lot of time. And one time I was actually right about to get out of my door and somebody's going to ticket me. And I reported to the city, police office. I said, this is not a good at all. I am a resident. I have the sticker. I pay the tax. Why would I get tickets when I park my car in front of my property just because I want to park in the shades? And another thing that my neighbor said about, living next to a door, I believe this is an issue going on since I moved into the property, and I totally suspect that we are getting racially discriminated. The reason why my contractor has talked to the inspectional office about this, she had an incident where a tree from the back hill cracked her roof. And I was doing the construction at that time. And the store is coming in 2 days. And she came knock on my door, and we were just new neighbor. And she was very politely asked me if she could get this thing help from my contractor. And my contractor had people work on her roof the next day and get everything finished within a day. And she could get rid of, having floods in her home because the roof was cracked. It was repaired right before the storm. During COVID, how can you get somebody fix your roof within a day? You cannot. I believe you cannot even find somebody within a day to fix your roof. The only trouble that's getting here, the fraction between the contractor and her, is she said she's gonna pay the contractor with her out-of-pocket money, because nobody is gonna pay her construction work, and waiting to get, so-called insurance reimbursement, in maybe months, that's gonna be out of pocket for my contractor. But after the work is done, she said she's not gonna pay my contractor, she's just gonna pay with her, her insurance. And my contractor was totally annoyed because it was agreement between her and my contractor. And, that's how she get really annoyed by us that, because this fraction, this, miscommunication between the contractor and her, and she never appreciated the work was done in a very affordable price within a day. And, also
I'm going to stop you because I'm thinking we're getting off track of what we're.
yeah, but I just want to give you a little background notice. And, Alan, the chief inspector knows about this because my contractors, told them about it.
A very serious charge of racial discrimination, and the parking issue is definitely not something the city council can help you with, but it sounds like you took that to the right place. But let's just try and keep on track to what you're asking for tonight for a special permit.
Yeah.
Councilor Lucas, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the former garage, which you say is going to be used as family space for your in-laws, I presume I heard that correct. I don't know. So it looks like you're going to have an Airbnb, which a violation, hold on, a violation has been issued. You said you're in the process of correcting that. And then you have your house. So that's a total, if I understand, of 2 units,
Yeah, 2 units.
which requires 4 parking stalls. You're asking for relief on the 2. Is that basically why you are here?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, I mean, at the advice of Mr. Temple, who you heard previously, he recommended that we hold this item until you get that zoning violation corrected. So I I want to hear what Councilor Leary has to say, but I will recommend that we hold this item. So that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lucas. Councilor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I am very familiar with this street. And I live nearby and grew up nearby, and I lived in Newton all my life. And that is a tricky little street. I know we worked on a Newton Corner permit parking for that, to keep non-Newton residents from parking there. And I thought that it was working fairly well. But if it's not, I'd like to talk to you and your neighbors more about how we can tweak that, because actually a lot of work did go into that. And I really appreciate that you came here to talk about your situation and what happened. I can understand mistakes happen, especially when you have a new baby and everything. I don't really have a concern about the waiver of the parking stalls. I agree with your neighbor who spoke before, especially since you're a 1-car family and you had a limit of 1 car for your Airbnb. You're also right on the 501 bus that goes right downtown, so you could easily take the bus to get around as well. But I agree with my colleague that I think we should hold this because there is an ongoing violation, though you did explain what happened. I think that should be resolved first. And I am sorry to hear about the conflict with your neighbors. I hope you can work to resolve that. It is a nice neighborhood. So I don't really have much else to say, but you did allay some of my concerns by being here and explaining your side of what happened. So the motion to hold has already been made, so I'll wait to hear what maybe my fellow counselor from Ward 1 might have something to say.
She might. In the meantime, before she raises her hand, Councilor Block had his hand up.
Thank you, Chair. My question may be more properly directed to the planning department, although possibly legal. I was mildly surprised about what's actually before us the waiver of 2 parking stalls because the dimension on the driveway that was shown earlier showed a total of, I think it was 34.3 inches. I'm sorry, feet, not inches. Thank you for that correction. So that would mean 17 feet in tandem. That may be less than what we require, but adequate for many pairs of vehicles, not just compact vehicles, but standard vehicles. I think 15 feet, 16 feet is maybe a little long, but so I'm curious why the matter before us is waiving 2 stalls as opposed to waiving the size of the driveway for the 4 cars that it looks like could be accommodated in that space. Just how does that, is that up to the petitioner and the way the petitioner proposed? Or was that something which planning recommended or legal recommended? Like, how did we just get to this end? Does it, I won't say does it matter, but is it still, I suppose, an option to do it either way? Or, just curious about that.
Well, we can hear from planning on that. Typically, how this happens is the petitioner, whether it's the owners themselves or their architect or their attorney, submit the request for the waiver that they have decided to seek. Joe, do you have anything you'd like to add to this question of Councilor Block's about how it is they came to request the relief for the 2 stalls rather than the size of the stalls?
Yeah, I would say just generally that, and Katie has maybe some more direct experience because it's a little bit of a rare request. But it doesn't matter at the end of the day. You could ask for shortened parking stalls, or you could ask for a waiver of them. A waiver of them is just the one item of relief, and it is a little bit less to show, at least on the plans that you are just showing the 2 spaces there. But I'll leave it to Katie if she has anything to add. There wasn't any guidance or any concern on my part when I was reviewing this matter that there were just going to be 2 as opposed to the 4 marked on there, because Councilor Block is correct. It is 34 feet and 4 inches. So there are potentially various sizes that it could fit, but if they don't park tightly, if they, the fact of the matter is the zoning ordinance calls for 19 each, and they're not able to meet that.
Yeah, basically just to add to that, our chief zoning code official reviews the plans prior to the petitioner submitting their application, and she identifies the relief that they need to ask for based on those plans. But I think, like Joe said, it probably could have been handled either way, but just waiving 2 stalls is generally cleaner, especially due to the lack of length or depth to the driveway.
Thank you, Ms. Wewell.
Well, thank you for those clarifications. Maybe I'll just defer this to the petitioner and their consideration, or perhaps it's planning also in its consideration, the fact that it seems to me that the predictability of the number of cars that these 2 residents will need to accommodate will fluctuate because of an Airbnb rental, because of family visiting for extended periods of time. It may be cleaner in one sense to just waive the 2 parking stall requirement, but it may be a more accurate reflection of reality that the 4 spaces be identified, but that but that we accept a less than 19 feet per stall. It's just a thought. That's my comments, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Block. Just to add one more variable to the list that you just said. Another thing is that if the current owners change vehicles and end up purchasing a larger vehicle in the future, if the ownership changes and new owners come in, this permit will go with this lot, not with these particular people in their one car or their one small car. So we have to think about that too. I see you, but I've got a few people before you. Ian Tisdale.
Yes, my name is Ian Teasdale. I'm the contractor that works for Mr. and Mrs. Sun for the last 3 years or so. I did the complete renovation on the 2 existing units. What I have to add is this, right? I mean, most of it you already has been testified, but as regards to the space, we bend over backward trying to figure out the best way was to accommodate ISD requirements or zoning requirements. But the reason why, no, the original intention was never to do no Airbnb or no unit to the bottom, was to try to keep the driveway, the garage as its original intent, just to avoid problems, which is the same problem we have. But what happened now was during construction, apparently it had some work going on up the hill behind the house. And something went wrong up there, I guess, that they started to get a lot of water problems, which they never had before. So the reason why I say it's the past 3 years, so I've been around there, I know the property for 3 years straight. So the driveway started to get a lot of water coming down, water started going into the garage. So that's becoming a problem. So we figure out now that, okay, if we do the garage, what are we going to do about this water? Because this water is a big, big problem, right? What you're going to do with it? And it's not just water flowing above, but somehow it's getting groundwater. So sometimes when rainfall, and even 5 days after rainfall, the ground is dry. Water is seeping out from underneath the steps that to go up the hill, which is at the back of the retaining wall, and it is running, right? And you will not see no sign of anything what causing that. So the driveway now, wintertime, the driveway is full of ice, right? So I tell them we got to do something about that, because up till today, we was there trying to think of a plan, maybe to dig out the backyard, right, and try to create some kind of massive French drain type of system to be able to try to control this water, because that's become a big problem for them. As regards to the street parking issue, right? The neighbor on the driveway side, they don't even use the driveway. They park on the street all the time, right? So I believe the driveway, the parking issue, that is, I think is a stretch. I mean, the rules is the rules and all of that, but nobody really, conform to the rules, right? Now they got 2 units. They have the unit that they live in, and the other unit, which is a very smaller unit, is just barely a 1-bedroom. Well, nobody's saying that the possibility exists that, a 2-car by 2-car would not happen. But the whole idea is that driveway, now the neighbor on the driveway side, she claims that the prior owner used to park in there all the time with a big station wagon, right? I don't know how true that is, because I worked there and we did a lot of test drive to see how easy that this could happen. And driving in that garage is not as easy as you think or she's saying it is. You can't even go in there forward. You got to always back in, and all the cars got to move out in order to do that. So it will be a garage that could never really use. It's just way too inconvenient. So I was the one who actually told them, you know what, let's ask for the waiver or get an easement or whatever we need, because you're going to spend money on something that will never, ever be able to be used, right? And then it had that water issue. So the reason why that door has been closed up is because until this legal matter side, complete, either way it goes, we could always take it back down and put a garage door there if we have to, right? But leaving that open while this case is going on, and especially because of the water issue, I don't even think that is even right because, everybody have the right to exist, right? And the neighbor on the driveway side, he has always been problematic. And I was the contractor that fixed the roof for her, right? And since that roof issue, she has always been a problem, right? And
Mr. Tisdale,
yes,
I'm going to ask you to wrap up because of our time constraints. And again, I'm trying to
yes, not a problem.
keep us focused on what we have before us. You've solved the mystery of who suggested they make this request. And you've raised another issue that we may want to talk about, which is how is the water problem being addressed? So we'll get to that later. Are you all set for now, sir?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Maliki.
Thank you. I'm confused about a few things. First of all, before your next meeting, it would be good to get clarification on exactly what the Airbnb violation was, because it sounds like this is a situation where somebody lives in one unit and rents the smaller unit as an Airbnb, and that's not allowed. It's not just not having an Airbnb registered. You can't have a two-family and rent one unit. You can rent a rent a room in your own unit, but the other unit's supposed to be, somebody else's house. So that's one point. It seems like this is they're trying to put, it seems like they, as I understand it, they got a variance to legalize in a firmer way the pre-existing two-family, despite the very small lot size. And now it seems like it's trying to get an even more waiver of space requirements by waiving the parking. It seems like this would be more, given the lot size and the not having enough parking for two units, it would be better to revert it to a one-family house. If they wanted to rent a room in the one-family house as an Airbnb, they could do that. And the more I hear about the retaining wall, I mean, as has been pointed out, retaining walls and water problems only seem to get worse, not better. And I'm also curious, and this is kind of I don't know, there's probably some explanation for it, but I see that the owners bought the property in 2020. I was trying to figure out who is living in the second unit, which I guess is nobody, but so I'm looking at the annual listing of residents, as of January 1, 2022, and there's nobody at all listed for 15 to 17 Plaisted Road. So, I mean, it sounds like they live there, but I'm just wondering why nobody is showing up as an actual resident. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maliki. Councillor Wright.
Yes, I just want to follow up with the Airbnb. So you can rent out your room, or you can in your house, or you can vacate your property for up to 3 months, but you cannot rent a separate apartment as an Airbnb. And we've just recently changed the rules to make ISD to enforce it a lot easier. So the second unit on its own, they can only rent that out for a total of 3 months, and the rest of the time it needs to be empty. What we're trying to do is make more apartments available for other people to live full-time in Newton. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. I would also like to mention and welcome Councillor Josh Krinsman from Ward 4, who has joined us on Zoom. Counselor Lobovitz. Oh, no? Oh, sorry. Counselor Greenberg, I'm so happy your hand is up. This is in your ward.
Thank you, Chair. I'm confused about this also. I heard the petitioner and their lawyer describe the new apartment as 500 square feet. So is this a two-family house with a third unit being used as an Airbnb? That's what I'm confused about. I'm just not sure, is that new area that they just had built next to the garage or in the basement, is that a separate unit from the two-family? I'm very confused about that.
I'm going to, the petitioners are ready to answer your question, Counselor Greenberg. Yes, go ahead.
So yeah, I just want to make a clarification to everyone who had, problem understanding like the unit structure and everything. We bought this property in 2020, and it was a two-family property, had a, two address, 15 and a 17. The structure inside was totally messed up, and the owner lived there who got this property from the previous one had a hearing, I believe back in 1995. And that was the meeting to grant a variance, two-family, title to this property, which, at that time had some violations. We bought the property without knowing much about the variance because I intended to renovate the property. It was very old, and I said the structured floor plan was totally messed up. It's not complying with the two-family structure at all. So after I bought it, the city told me it had a variance on that, and anything I do, I need to go through the inspectional service to get permission from their review. So everything I have done so far, I got the unit better, more compliant with the two-family. And I get, clearly review and, permission from the inspectional service. And I have no problem converting it back to a single family, but it's just never a thought that I had because it had a two-family, and I need to go through more, in order, because it has a variance on that. In order to go back to a single family, I need to go through another set of process to do that. So that is the issue. And for the 500 square feet smaller unit, that was the 17 side. And that side, we lived there for almost 2 years before the unit 15 was completely completed. And why it took so long to complete the whole project is because of the variance. Everything I do, I need to go through, the different process with the inspectional service and in order to get the, permit to do the work. And the 17 side was intended for family use, and because our parents don't visit us that often, that's why I put it on Airbnb. I have to admit that in the very beginning, I was not aware that I thought you live on that property, you could rent whatever portion of the property to the short-term renters, tenants. But now I think somebody just mentioned that because it's a separate unit, then I cannot do that more than 3 months or whatever in a year. But anyway, this thing will be clear out, along with the violation notice that I got yesterday. But anyway, the Airbnb side was never intended as a long-term Airbnb. It was just for family use, and the side of 15 was for our family use.
Thank you. Counselor Laredo.
Madam Chair, we've now spent a considerable amount of time on an item that clearly is going to be held because we have some serious concerns. What I would respectfully suggest is this is a project which requires some offline discussion between the petitioners, their counsel, and the planning department, as well as inspectional services, to find out, A, if there's a violation, let's get it corrected. B, can they properly maintain a unit here or not? If they can't, then we may be doing a lot of work for naught. So I'm going to urge us not to take this matter up tonight, but to hold it, as Councilor Lucas and Leary suggested, but furthermore, that it not come back here till these issues are resolved. These all should be resolved offline and not in the course of what I think has now been 45 plus minutes of discussion for something we're clearly holding. So I'm quite supportive of holding this. There's work to be done here. And I'm not going to opine on the merits of this till that work is done. Thank you.
Thank you, President Laredo. I'm going to quickly say before we cut to the chase, which I do believe is what's definitely going to be to vote on the hold motion, is that for you folks to know that there are a lot of rules and regulations that you need to follow in terms of getting licensed, in terms of cleaning this up, in terms of not building things without a permit and coming back to seek forgiveness instead of permission. That is not something we generally like to see in here. So I'm just going to mention that to you. I assume that things will all be worked out before it comes back to us. We will not be ready to entertain this until all of these things have been worked out. We're going to now move on the motion. If we're going to hold, we're going to keep the public hearing open. But we will move, did you make the motion, Councillor? Okay, Councillor Leary made the motion to hold this item. We're going to take a voice call vote on this.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Laredo.
Aye.
Motion passes.
We'll see you again, I assume. The next item is number 330-24. It's a request to exceed FAR and to vertically extend non-conforming front setbacks at 35 Hood Street. And again, planning will go first. Give us a
Good evening.
petition. Yes.
Oh, sorry. Good evening, Joe O'Donoghue. I'll be covering 35 Hood Street. There are those three items which Councilor Kelly just described, exceeding the maximum floor area ratio, vertically extending the non-conforming front setback, and vertically extending the non-conforming front setback of the detached garage. When considering the criteria, it is the specific site is an appropriate location for the additions that will further extend the non-conforming floor area ratio and non-conforming front setbacks of the principal dwelling in the garage. That the additions will further extend the non-conforming floor area ratio and non-conforming front setbacks of the principal dwelling in the garage as developed and operated will not adversely affect the neighborhood. That there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians created by the additions that will further extend the non-conforming floor area ratio and non-conforming front setbacks of the principal dwelling in the garage. That access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved in the additions that will further extend the non-conforming floor area ratio and non-conforming front setbacks of the principal dwelling and the garage. That the proposed increase in the floor area ratio from 0.33 to 0.56, where 0.45 is the maximum allowed by right, is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, design of other structures in the neighborhood. And lastly, that the proposed extension of two front setbacks for the principal dwelling and the detached garage is not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use to the neighborhood. I'll look at where the property is. It is not very far from where our last petition was. And with that, there's still some of the same terrain issues that you have on some of those small lot considerations that you have as well, which I'll show a little bit more of in the site plan. But this particular petition is in the single residence 1 zone and in a generally residential neighborhood. This is a look at the existing and proposed site plans. If you see on the left, that does not have the existing grading on it. Only the proposed on the right has the existing grading on it on the dashed lines with the resulting grading as proposed in the full lines with the numbers on it. But otherwise, on the existing site plan, things that I do want to point out are that the lot size is undersized at just under 6,000 square feet, and that the triangular shape also presents some issues as there is No real rear lot line for this one, and then that makes complying with the setbacks a little bit more difficult as it's a difficult shape to work with. There is an existing garage with a collapsed roof that has since been cleaned up on the site, but with that they lose the existing floor area ratio of that. It did not it previously complied even with the floor area ratio of the roof, but that's just a consideration as to something that, as it's reconstructed on the proposed plans, just adds overall to what their total floor area ratio is, as it is not coming entirely from the work for the additions on the principal building. Like the last one, this one does have a very significant grade change with a slope up of about 17 feet along about 100 feet from that front left corner to the rear corner where the two side lot lines meet. And with that, it's pretty apparent as you go by it on the street that the house is up there a little bit higher up, and that there isn't really a lot of room to extend otherwise on that lot. They are proposing to reconstruct that garage and have two sets of steps going up to the property where they're constructing additions up on that north or front side, and then that left or west side, a very small little overhang library that's kind of between the first and second floor on that right side. And those additions add to the floor area ratio. That addition along the front requires relief because it is above the porch area that is previously non-conforming with the existing front setback is not going to change, but they are going to vertically extend. The same goes for the garage, whereas currently the height is not really anything because it is a collapsed and cleared structure. So they are going to vertically extend it upwards as well. Lastly, on the site plans, just wanted to point out that the grading changes are limited to generally create a slope upward that supports the steps, create some level area in between where the steps are proposed, and they are going to have a little walkway that goes to a roof deck on top of that garage as well. So they wanted to create some level space there, I'm presuming. That's where the most significant area of fill and grade change is, with some fill up to about 4 feet there. But otherwise, that additional lot fill and grade changes is limited to where those steps are, and isn't being used to make any grade changes around the foundation to manipulate the overall height or sink the basement or change the floor area ratio calculation in any meaningful way. Just some minor grade calculations result in a 0.4 feet increase in the overall height, as well as some of the work with some dormers that I'll show on the elevations. As you see on the Google Maps and Google Earth view, there is that pretty significant slope that I was talking about. That front right where that minivan is located is where they're proposing to have that garage. And then they're planning on adding in front where that porch is, from the basement, first floor, second floor with an additional dormer and roof deck area. That'll be area above the second story, and an additional roof deck on that second floor. You can see on the left where they have a library that is going to be kind of in between floors as well. A look at the west elevation shows where they're pushing out a little bit towards the west or right side of the house, while they're going up to just above the second story and not going all the way up to the top of the roof line there. No significant work happening on the rear, just you can see where that library area to the right is going to be in between that first floor and second floor bottom there, a little bit off the two of them. And then you can see a little bit of the work going on the right facade as well. And lastly, a look at the left or east elevation where you see that library and some of that work on the front. And that's it, and I'll turn it back to the council.
Thank you very much. Is somebody here for the petitioner?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Terry Morris. I'm an attorney with offices at 57 Elm Road in Newton. And I'm pleased to be here to represent the homeowners, Peter and Mary Jo Dennis, and their two children, Sam and Alan. And I also want to commend Mr. Iadonisi for his very detailed explanation as to the reasons and for the floor area ratio increase, largely dictated by the topographical condition of the site and the shape of the lot. I want to also introduce with me here on screen is Ms. Megan Tarosian, who is our architect, part of our architectural team, and if it's possible that she may share the screen. Also with me this evening is our architect, Mr. Ron Jarek, as well as Mr. Dennis as well, to answer any questions. If we could, we'll start with the presentation. Menting. Okay, I think that Mr. Iadonisi has shown the site plan and the area map, so we can skip through those and go right to the floor plans. This house, which was originally built in 1916, I think the memo might say 1930, but this house does appear in the 1917 atlas. Obviously has some limitations as to room size and layout. The main purpose of our being here tonight and Dennis's objective is to create a comfortable living space for their family of four and for their children who are now teenagers. They purchased the property in 1992 before they had their children, and now it's certainly at a stage of the family's development where the current house, which is almost a century old, is deficient in many respects. As pointed out, you can see now the basement floor plan, you can see the difference. The original house, fairly just a routine square with the rectangle on top representing a foundation supporting the porch. What is being proposed, and you can see the stairway off to the left on the existing plan that is largely of metal construction and not particularly safe for travel at this stage. And that is being replaced, you can see on the existing floor plan, where the basement extension is largely to create a proper foyer for entering the home at that level. The extension on the west side of the house is to support the extensions on the first and second floor. Next slide, please. Actually, I think we have the photographs, don't we, Maintain? Probably it's helpful to see. Here we have an aerial view of the house, which shows Hood Street on the forefront, and then you can see the access driveway on the lower right hand of the larger screen. On the left, on the right, excuse me, of this sheet, you can see the existing porch. It's largely looks like the foundation has a stucco exterior. It is obviously in deteriorating condition. Next slide, please. This shows you the existing access to the house. You can see now why I have described the stairway as something that largely is not to be safely traversed. And you can see to the left there, some remnants of the garage. Next slide. There's pictures of the house in its heyday, when it was actually much more, with the garage showing to be, when it was certainly functional as a garage. Next stage. So now we're back to now we go to the first floor plan. The first floor plan shows the stairway that has been removed now on the exterior. And once you enter the building at the ground level, you come up a set of stairs. On the first level, the shaded area, for those people who are watching, to distinguish the shaded area from the addition, the shaded area is the current layout of the plan of the house footprint, and the white area is the newly constructed addition. I would point out that the actual porch that you saw was going to be going down and replicated with the foundation having been extended along the west side to support the changes up above. You can see that the living room quite modest, and to the right of the screen, upper right-hand corner, there's a sewing room in the existing plan that, with the expansion, has now allowed for the creation of a dining room and an expanded living room. If we go to the next slide, please. First, second floor plan. Thank you. The second floor plan contains probably one bedroom. There's also a smaller room there that is about 70 square feet. The addition allows for a more functional bedroom size, both the primary bedroom, which now is a walk-in closet, and the other bedrooms as well. You can see also on the right-hand side where Mr. Idonisi has shown the extension on the east side of a small library, one-story addition. Next slide, please. There you have the attic space. That attic space, you can see the heavy border actually represents the distinction between 5-foot and 7-foot area. The stairway you see there actually replaces a pull-down stair, providing access for storage purposes. Next slide, please. Here we have 3D views, which actually give you a better idea and understanding of the volume of the building and how it sits on the slope of this hill. As I said, most of this construction is largely within the existing footprint, except for that modest addition on the west side between the garage and the existing home. Next slide, please. And here we have an actual to scale drawing showing what the finished garage would look like, and in the forefront, and in the background we have the showing the house as upgraded and refurbished. And with that, Madam Chair, that concludes our presentation. But as I say, Mr. Janis is here to answer any questions the members may have about the changes being made to accommodate his family's current needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morris. Are there any members of the public, either in the chamber or on Zoom, who would like to speak on this? Shockingly, no. So we can ask the question, though, did you reach out to the neighbors? Are the neighbors aware of this project, and what have they had to say about it? If nobody's here to speak, that's a question that we might want to ask the petitioner to address at some point. I guess I'm asking that question. You don't have to answer right now. Others may ask that when it's their turn. If no members of, Mary Lee Belleville.
Thanks. I tried to answer my question by looking at the documents, but so this went before Historic Commission. Was it preferably preserved and it's gone through that, or they approve the plans?
It was determined by the Historical Commission that the property was not preferably preserved.
Okay, and so but it wasn't a total demo, right?
No, it's not a total demo. They're
You're
actually,
right, so it wouldn't be preferably preserved. So did they review the plans and approve it, or is that not part of the process?
no, they made that determination
Administratively, okay, thank you.
administratively.
Administratively, thank you.
Which usually indicates it was a rather simple, clear-cut decision if they do that and they don't bring it to the commission, just typically. Thank you, Ms. Belleville. Anyone else? If not, let's bring this into the Land Use Committee. Councilor Lorraine.
I believe this is my ward, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken. There's a fair amount of relief requested here, but in many ways, this is precisely what we have the special permit process for. We have a difficult site to work off. It's small, it's constrained. They seem to be pretty thoughtful. It's always nice when we don't see any neighbors who live next door who have concerns. It means that the petitioner hopefully did his job in talking to them, which is what we encourage. So, I'm ready to move to close the public hearing and move this item. Again, there's a lot of relief here, but this is why we have a special permit for these types of projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. President Laredo, we'll entertain your motion, but we have two other councilors with their hands up. Councilor Block.
Thank you, Chair. I'm from the street. There is a lot of foliage which has grown over the years that actually makes it look very attractive. And I was wondering if the petitioner expects to retain that foliage. There may be small trees involved, I'm not sure, but it's really quite remarkable. And that's all I have. Thank you.
We have an answer at the podium.
Yeah, hi, I'm Peter Danish. Gonna keep all those bushes and trees. I put them in there, spent many decades doing that. And the other question in terms of speaking with the neighbors, I described this to all the neighbors on the street and behind us also. And they've been pretty supportive. I'm grateful for that.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councilor Block?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Councilor Farrell.
I would, thank you, Chair. I just want to reiterate what Councilor Laredo said, but also I think this is a spectacular restoration of a property. We were out there this afternoon, and I do think this is exactly what I certainly hope for when people renovate their homes. And we did have the opportunity to speak with a neighbor across the street who was very happy about what is being done and said that the owner has in fact kept him up to date about what's going on. So that was very positive also. But my congratulations to the owner.
Thank you, Councilor Farrell. Councilor Leary.
I also think this is a lovely project. I love to see homes that are restored and improved for modern family living. My mother lived at 22 Shorncliffe Road, very close by. Topography is difficult there. True. So I would fully support the project.
Great. I think that is everyone who wants to speak. We're going to take Councilor Laredo's motions to heart. If we're going to vote on it, we can close the public hearing. Everyone in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? No. We will now consider the motion to approve. Let's hear the findings and council order.
The specific site is an appropriate location for the additions that will further extend the non-conforming floor area ratio and non-conforming front setbacks of the principal dwelling in the garage, as the undersized and steeply sloped lot mean that there are few options for structures that fully comply with floor area ratio and setback requirements, given the lot is undersized and has a triangular shape. The additions that will further extend the non-conforming floor area ratio and non-conforming front setbacks of the principal dwelling and the garage as developed and operated will not adversely affect the neighborhood, as the additions are relatively minor in scale and will not decrease the two non-conforming front setbacks. There will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians created by the additions that will further extend the non-conforming floor area ratio and non-conforming front setbacks of the principal dwelling and the garage, as no changes to site circulation or parking are proposed. That access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved in the additions that will further extend the non-conforming floor area ratio and non-conforming front setbacks of the principal dwelling in the garage, as no changes to site circulation or parking are proposed. That the proposed increase in the floor area ratio from 0.33 to 0.56, where 0.45 is the maximum allowed by right, is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood, as the resulting structure will be of comparable or smaller size to most dwellings in the neighborhood. And lastly, that the proposed project, which will render the floor area ratio non-conforming and vertically extend the non-conforming front setbacks for the principal dwelling and the detached garage, is not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use to the neighborhood, as the additions are relatively minor in scale and few alternatives to seeking relief are available given the small size and irregular shape of the lot. And we just have the standard conditions for this proposal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Iadinisi. We'll take a vote.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Laredo.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck with that beautiful project. Only two more to go tonight. The next one is number 331-24, which is a request to extend a non-conforming front setback at 98 Parker Ave. Again, we'll hear first from planning.
Good evening. This is Kat Kemet again from the Planning Department. This is petition number 331-24, a special permit for 98 Parker Avenue. The petitioner proposes here to construct a larger front landing, including new stairs at the front entrance of the existing dwelling. The expansion of this landing will further extend the non-conforming front setback. So that's the only element of relief here is to extend the non-conforming front setback. In reviewing this request, the council should consider if the proposed extension of the non-conforming setback is substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure is to the neighborhood. This is an aerial view of the neighborhood. The zoning of this property and surrounding lots is single residence 3. The neighborhood is primarily residential in character with mostly single family homes. All of the abutting lots are single family dwellings. This is the proposed site plan. There are a few existing nonconformities on the site, including the size of the lot, which is 6,160 square feet, where 7,000 is required. The front setback as it stands now is nonconforming with a 21.8 foot front setback where 25 feet is required. There is an existing landing and steps on the site that extend into the setback, which results in an 18-foot front setback. But because the steps, there are steps and landing that are a minimum requirement in the building code, which these steps do meet. So the existing landing and steps are not considered in that setback measurement for the purposes of zoning. The petitioner here is proposing to remove those existing front landing and steps and to create a new front landing and steps that will be a bit bigger, with the intention of making it easier to access the front of the house. So the width of the landing will increase from 5.5 feet to closer to 8 feet wide, because the landing and steps will be bigger than what the minimum set is in the building code. They are now going to be factored into the front setback, so they need relief. So with the proposed construction, the front setback will be reduced to 14.7 feet. Work, which is all here, is a little hard to see in this plan, which is a little busy, but this is the front landing and steps. Work proposed also includes repaving the driveway and removing the existing walkway in favor of a new one that will connect to the driveway rather than the sidewalk. So proposed lot coverage will stay the same at 22.8%, with 87.6 square feet of impervious cover added, and open space will decrease a little bit from 52.7% to 52.5%, but it is still over the 50%, so required as a minimum, so no relief is required on that front. Overall, we didn't note any major concerns with the relief requested here. The work proposed does encroach a bit further into the front setback than what currently exists today, but the work is limited just to the stairs and the landing. It doesn't add any additional relief for floor area ratio, open space lot coverage, anything like that. So we believe it's unlikely to have a major impact on neighborhood or on abutters. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kemet. I think we've mentioned this before. I'm just going to say to you that sometimes your microphone on your speaker cuts out, so we don't actually get to hear all of your words. Just something for you to be aware of.
Oh, my apologies. I wasn't aware.
Yeah, we've had that conversation before, but I think we got all the important things you're saying, but sometimes it just cuts out. Let's hear now from the petitioner.
Good evening, thank you. Thanks for Ms. Kemet summarizing what we are about to do. The main reason for us to do that is safety, to make the stairs a bit wider. We now have 2 kids and a toddler, and kind of to enter the house on a narrow stairs with this party is kind of became a bit harder, and this is why we moved we redo the entrance kind of for safety reasons from the kids running directly to the street, but rather to the parking lot. So this is all I have. I will happy to answer any questions.
Let us just confirm, are you Alexander
Yes,
Zavlavsky?
Alexander Zaslavsky from 98.
And you live at 98 Parker, you're the owner. Thank you. Just for the record, we want to be sure we know who you are. Thank you. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this? I don't see anyone, so let's see what the committee members have to say. President Laredo.
It's not my ward, so I'll defer to Council Lovovitz. I believe this is Ward 6, but this is perfectly fine project. Let's just try to help these folks get this done.
I agree. Perhaps Councilor Lovovitz will have something to say about that too.
Yes. So I'm fully supportive of this project. It makes sense. It's wouldn't cause any problems for neighbors. It's fairly straightforward. I think we should approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree. Would you like to make a motion to close the public hearing and to move this docket item?
I move to close the public hearing on this docket item.
Great. Let's all in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? And now we do have before us a docket, a motion to approve. So we'll hear about the findings and the draft council order.
For findings, we have the proposed alteration of the nonconforming front setback is not substantially more detrimental than the existing nonconforming structure is, because the project adheres to other applicable dimensional regulations and no additional habitable space will be created. and standard conditions would apply, which includes plan referencing, standard building permit and occupancy conditions.
Thank you, Ms. Kemet. We're ready to vote.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lovovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Laredo.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Good luck, sir. Pretty simple, straightforward project that will improve your steps and landing. Good luck. Thanks. Our final item for the night is number 332-24, which is a request to allow ground floor residential use and to exceed by right height and stories at 340 River Street and 76 Lexington Street. Planning will give us a quick overview first. Perhaps
All right.
not, hopefully quick.
I'll do my best, Counselor. Joe O'Donoghue, I'll be presenting this petition for 340 River Street. There are the three criteria that the counselor listed, as it is in a business use zone. The building type is townhomes or kind of sort of single family attached looking units. So they do have ground floor residential proposed, and they are greater than 24 feet in height, and they do reach 3 stories, and each of those items requires relief. The criteria to consider are that the specific site is an appropriate location for waiving the ground floor retail requirement for the business use zone and allowing 3 stories in height greater than 24 feet, that the waiver for ground floor retail requirement for the business use zone and allowing 3 stories in height greater than 24 feet as developed and operated will not adversely affect the neighborhood, that there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians created by a waiver of the ground floor retail requirement for the business use zone and allowing 3 stories in height greater than 24 feet. And lastly, that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved in the waiver of ground floor retail requirement for the business use zone and allowing 3 stories in height greater than 24 feet. This is a look at where the location is. It is pretty close to the border of Waltham, directly across the street from De Pasquale's at Nightcap's Corner, and then just down the road from a variety of industrial, manufacturing, and business uses, as well as some extension of public parklands, multi-residence, and some various multifamily uses, as well as single residence and some single uses. So definitely a variety of building types that we see in the area, uses, and structures. The petitioners with this proposal are merging the lots at 76 Lexington Street with 340 River Street. And this is a look at what is currently existing on the site. There are 3 small storefronts along the corner of River Street and Lexington Street. One is currently occupied by a jeweler. They've had a bunch of different uses over the years, grocer, nail salon, barber, other small retail type uses, but 2 are apparently vacant at this time. As a correction to my memo, it is not a single family home at 76 Lexington Street. It is a 2-family home, as Chief Zoning Official Jane had in her memo, and the attorney Terry Morris also pointed out. It is a prior existing 2-family, but I wrongfully saw the building and assumed, as it appears as a single family, that it is. But they do have some living space above, or some conditioned space above the garage. Generally, this building does appear as a single family, which is where the confusion stemmed from. This is a look at what is proposed on the site. They have 4 residential units proposed, each with 2-car garages, and they each have 2 front setbacks, one along Lexington, one along river. They conform with those ones as well as with the side and rear. They have walkways going towards the site as well as the garage and the housing units. Otherwise, they do have some landscaping area to the rear and to the other sides that is not present. The total lot area is just slightly more than 10,000 square feet. And they are adding about 3,000 square feet of pervious surface, whereas almost the entirety of the site currently is impervious. So that will be a bit of an improvement as far as stormwater is concerned. However, they will still need to go through minor stormwater review when it comes time, if and when it comes time to apply for a building permit for this project. They will have to show some more than is on the site plan as far as how they plan on handling stormwater and drainage on the site. Overall, the regrading of the site is very minor and consistent with the scale that would be done normally just to support the foundation in the garage going in. It is plus or minus about a foot in any location, with generally keeping the same sort of directional slope downwards towards that corner of River Street and Lexington Street. There is no work done to really change that midpoint of the basement or make less of that area apparent. As you can see, I know it's kind of small. The overall height of the building as proposed is 37.8 feet, which is in excess of 24 required for the business use. And although this is not a single family attached proposal, as that is not a listed use for a business use district, and it requires a special permit anyways in the residential zones, it is larger than the 36 feet of allowed height for other uses within the residential zones. Other things to note, as for this site, all parking is required is accommodated within those garages. And there is an error on this site plan that the attorney has informed me will be corrected, and that's that a curb cut is left along Lexington Street, where they are proposing to close both of those curb cuts, and where they are proposing to have the curb cut over on River Street, moving it away from the intersection. That one is correct, and that one will be the only curb cut that will be on the site. This is another look at the site just from the schematic and landscaping view, where it might be a little bit less complicated. As far as the building placement and size, that conforms with all zoning dimensional standards. Just the height requires relief and the use. I'll leave a little bit of time to just look at this, but there's nothing in particular to point out that I haven't covered in the previous site plan. 4 tonal units again. Sorry. This is a look at the front elevation from Lexington Street. It is going to have a mansard roof on that 3rd floor, which will make sure that it counts as a 3rd floor, in addition to the height, that type of a slope of roof, no matter what, or that leads to it being counted. And you can see some of the difference in the types of materials and a little bit of a jut out for units 1 and 3 there as well. There are also some changes to, since the land use memo, there were some changes to the architectural plans. They did not require planning staff to send it back for a zoning review memo for a second time, as none of it affected any sort of zoning dimensions. It was just a relocation of that door along this River Street frontage, front elevation, as well as an addition of a couple of windows. There were no zoning dimensional standards or changes in size of the building or on the site itself. This is a look at the building from the rear, where you see the two-car garage entrances. No changes to that were submitted after the Land Use Committee memo was completed and filed. On the right elevation, there was a change submitted, and that, similar to the opposite side along River Street, was just a relocation of the door and the addition of a singular window. This is a look at the proposed landscaping plan. We are requesting a little bit more detail on the plan, caliper inches and things that will be needed to demonstrate compliance with the tree ordinance. There is only one tree remaining on the site currently, so this is a general improvement, but we are looking for slightly more detail in the plans in the future. Otherwise, things to note from planning staff is that this at 37.8 feet will be larger than other residential uses in the surrounding area. And we have asked the petitioners to consider if that height can be reduced at all. Lastly, there are definitely some traffic issues with River Street and Lexington Street that have been presented, but overall, this is a generally positive change with the closure of 2 curb cuts and the movement of a curb cut away from River Street. While the retail uses are currently 2 out of 3 vacant, moving from 2 units to 4 residential units and previously having 3 retail units should be a generally positive impact on traffic, with retail uses having more in and out customers and employees than residential uses generally have, with people coming and going generally at the end of the workday. But that is overall very minor in scale in terms of traffic. And additionally, it is, while minor in scale, an increase from 2 to 4 residential units is a slight move towards our goals in the housing production plan, as well as the Newton comprehensive plan. And that concludes my comments from planning, and I'll turn it back to the council.
Thank you, Joe. Before we hear from the petitioner, who will augment whatever they think is important that you didn't mention, correct me if I'm wrong, this has been part of a long-standing proposal development. Do they need to resubmit a demo delay request, or is that all taken care of? And Joe, you can either answer that, or Mr. Morris could answer that.
Thank you so much, Counselor. Yes, I absolutely forgot to cover that. The applicants applied for demo and were approved for demo a few years ago, and since then time has elapsed and they need to return. They've submitted a request to return, but have not yet come before the Newton Historical Committee to be granted that. There was a demo delay of 1 year imposed for 76 Lexington Street, and there was no demo delay or preservation for 340 River Street, those 3 retail locations.
And when did that expire?
That expired in 2021. You have 2 years after the demo delay.
Okay, thanks. So we'll be sure that that gets covered. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, for the record, my name is Terry Morris. I'm an attorney with offices at 57 Elm Road, Newton, and I'm here representing the owner of the property, 340 River Street Realty Trust. I would point out that my clients just only recently acquired title to the property in July. And that explains one reason why they couldn't file an application for demo. Because if it's anticipated that a demolition delay were imposed, then the clock would have to reset upon change of ownership. I have, I've had some history with this site, having represented the former owner, Mr. Camerado. Some of you on the board of longstanding may remember there was a very aggressive creative project to create a hotel at that site along with some workforce housing, which prior to the pandemic was looked like it had some legs, so to speak. But then when the pandemic struck, that wiped out any thought of a hotel. And so since that time, Mr. Camerado has been trying to sell the property. I was quite surprised when I was contacted by the prospective owners to represent the development, largely because when I saw what their proposal was, I expected a development of far greater intensity. And as you see, 4 units on this site is probably the least dense project that you could propose. And since it's all residential, the effort, of course, is made to try to integrate it into the neighborhood. The change that was pointed out by Mr. Iadonisi on the River Street facade was done in anticipation of one or more of your members commenting upon how the facade presented to, since it's a corner lot, there's a particular interest in making sure you present a proper front to both sides. And I think, as you saw in the presentation, that the earlier iteration of that facade certainly didn't accomplish that fact. And we trust that the revised facade does. With respect to the height of the building, I can tell you how that arose. I know the architect designed the plan to be a little over 35 feet. Unfortunately, he didn't take into account the average grade, which added another 2 feet, a little less than 2 feet to the height. My only thought with that is that this is a corner lot. It is in a business zone. And I know that historically that there has been some deference allowed for buildings of this nature on corner lots. They are allowed some prominence. Not that the analogy is exact, but and somewhat imperfect. But you can see such a thing in Newtonville Square, where the Trio building is much higher in the corner than it is on the adjacent streets. So that's how that arose. I don't think that the 22-inch difference is significant. We're hopeful that with all of the other positive features that are attendant to this proposal, as has been presented in the planning report, there's a decrease of more than 3,000 square feet of impervious area has been wiped out. The site will now be served by, as is pointed out, will now be served by a drainage system to control any potential problems there. I also would point out that we did reach out to the neighbors. I know that Councilor Block knows that we made an effort to have a neighborhood meeting, which was finally held once summer had ended last week. It was attended by a number of neighbors. Those who attended, I sent copies of the plan so that they could look at them, even though we presented them at the meeting. One issue did arise, and they asked the question about, well, is there going to be visitor parking? And we said, well, we are providing the necessary parking, 2 spaces per. I said to them, however, we could look at, as you saw the site, there is, if the site now, as you will see, actually, well, it's probably, we'll bring it up, the photographs. Oh, can we share the screen, please? I'm sorry. Should we share the screen?
Who would you like?
Yes,
Share.
Mr. Gene Voloshin, who is the trustee of the Realty Trust, would like to share the screen.
All set.
Okay. What we're looking to show you is a photograph of the existing conditions, which shows a large expanse of asphalt that provided accessory parking for here it is, right there. That is actually the view from 340 River Street. That is, you can see by the curbstone, the bumper stops there that it has been used for accessory parking for the building. And that is contributes to the significant amount of impervious area that comprises the site. Because it was formerly used as parking, now if we could bring up the, actually, we might as well take a little tour around there. Could you bring up the next slide, please, to show a little bit more? There you get a better sense as to what it looks like at ground level. With the intersection across the street, you'll see a two office building across the street and then around, full blown. There is the 76 Lexington Street frontage, and you can see how that presents itself. And then finally, across the street, you see referenced in the planning report, there is a reference to a 3-story or a building of higher height, the multifamily building to the far left on this picture. But I pointed out 89 Lexington Street across the street. You can see that how that sits on a bit of a knoll, the site having been raised, and I would suggest that that is closer in height to what we are proposing than some of the other, than the home next to it, for example. Having said that, let's go to we're going to show you now some the landscaping, which we think is now these perspectives gives you a better sense as to the landscape, what it would look like with the landscape installed. That is looking at the property from which corner is that, Gene? Looking down. That's actually the front of the building looking north on River Street. Go ahead, next one. There's the full frontage facing Lexington Street. Next, actually, there is the facade. There's the corner, looking on the corner of River and Lexington. You can see the facade was changed on River Street to show more of a residential look to the presence on River Street, which we think something that greatly enhanced that side of the building. Gene, throw the back. That's a closer look of that elevation, and then the back, the rear. Here we see looking back at the back of the building and the with the landscaping strip along the back. We are proposing also a 6-foot fence around the perimeters of the property. Here you have the landscape plan. One of the things that was called for was to have the landscape plan dated and assigned by the author. And there you see there, Bobby Designs has basically stamped that plan. And we've already seen that, so we can skip through that. I wanted to get to this because at the neighborhood meeting, they asked if whether this could accommodate visitor park. So we said to them we would take a look at it. I want to say we are not proposing this because for the reasons you'll see why as I continue my presentation. We looked at the possibility of basically putting 3 or 4 spaces along that east edge of the property, that east lot line. As you can see, as you saw before in the photographs, that's all asphalt now. It was virtually impossible to put any parking opposite garages, garage number one for unit 1 on the far right. Garage number 2, almost similarly, you couldn't do it if there was parking in front of 1. We did come up with the possibility, given the dimensional requirements for parallel parking, of 2 9-by-21 spaces located in that spot. The problem with that is while it's possible to accommodate them physically, the circulation problems that would create would be severe because you would have difficulty either entering those parking spaces or exiting those parking spaces. And for that reason, we are not requesting that be part of our submission or part of the approval. But we do want to keep faith with the neighbors. We told them we would look at it, and this is the result. And we told them we would present it to the committee. If there was any discussion to be had, there would be, but That's the reason why this appears on the screen now as part of the presentation.
Mr. Morris, I might suggest you don't even need to mention these if it's not part of your proposal. I don't think we have to spend any more time on guest parking spots.
I'm sorry?
I don't think we need to spend any time on the guest parking spots.
That's what I would have thought, and I did tell the neighbors at the meeting, I said I suspected that there would be
We'll
at least.
tell him you present, we'll tell them you presented it, and we don't need to spend any more time on committee on it because it's not part of the
That's
proposal.
not valid. So then the presentation that you have before you is what we hope that you will act upon. Thank you very much. If there's any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Great. Thank you. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this? I don't see any. If you change your mind, raise your virtual hand or wave at the screen. Let's hear from the committee. Land Use Committee members, any comments? President Laredo.
A couple things. First of all, for planning, is everything complete?
Yes, Counselor, everything is complete for the special permit application.
So I noted in the memo that the plan, the landscape plans had not been properly signed. That's been taken care of?
That will be conditioned, if this is approved, that they be properly signed.
All right.
Yeah, should this be approved, we can add a condition requiring signed and stamped landscape plan as well as an updated site plan showing the closing of that curb cut that is shown as open along, I believe, Lexington Street.
Ms. Wewell, I must say I had a little bit of difficulty hearing you there. I just want to be clear on something. You're saying the landscape plan is fine and all it needs is a signature?
Well, yeah, we would like it to be more, I guess, professional. It's really just sort of a graphic showing the trees, but we wanted it to be titled and stamped so we can actually reference it. I think we can work with what the petitioner has submitted as long as they understand they will be held to that landscape plan. And second, for the site plan, we would still be looking for a site plan showing the closing of that curb cut along Lexington. However, we can condition that prior to the building permit application.
So my take of that is this application is not complete, okay? I expect personally that when petitioners show up here, everything is done. Landscape plan is done. If the plans are not what you needed, they're done. I for one, am just uncomfortable because of some other problems, frankly, we've had on other projects, leaving things alone for later. Because that's where problems happen. So is there a reason this wasn't done, Mr. Morris?
Yes, we only received the memo late Friday and today's Tuesday. It's going, these issues were brought to our attention only at that time.
So
we
you didn't
did
realize the
our-
plans weren't
if I-
signed?
If I may. So that landscape plan, there's a name and a date on it, which was requested. That's a simple matter. We can certainly have, if you want to put it on second call, we can certainly have a plan submitted to planning before it's voted on.
I'm gonna ask if we approve something here, it'd be subject to second call. I want to make, I'll just go on the record. I know the chair and the vice chair are gonna lead some discussions about how we could do this stuff better. There's always room for improvement. But one of our lessons learned is we need to have complete documents so there's no changes. Because if there's changes and we don't see them and planning sees them and passes on them, we can conceivably have egg in our face. So I'm not suggesting that's going to happen here, but I want to make darn sure that we know exactly what we're signing off on. So that's just a procedural issue. I've got a more substantive question for the planning department. This is a business district, and they're utilizing the rules of a business district to create this parcel. If this was a residential district of some sort under our zoning code, multi-residence, whatever, could they build this project as is being proposed?
No,
would
the
be- oh,
height,
sorry,
the
go ahead.
height would be excessive.
I'm sorry, the answer is no.
Correct. The height is excessive.
Okay, so I have a fundamental problem with this, okay? and it's an institutional issue. We are taking what is a business district property primarily and saying we're converting it to residential use. That may be entirely proper. And I can tell from the fact that we have 2 vacant storefronts. This is not a commercial area that seems to be thriving. So I understand the rationale to changing it to residential. What I am very uncomfortable with, and I think we all ought to be uncomfortable with, is the idea that we're using standards that we are setting forth for business rules, businesses, taking those same standards and applying them to residential. If this was converted to residential as a zone, which frankly it should be, we're turning this into residential property, it should be a residential zone, then we ought to be getting built what is permitted within our residential zones. We might want to change the zone, change the rules for the zone, that's fine. But institutionally, I think, colleagues, we have a real issue with applying business rules, which are designed for businesses, and saying to someone who's proposing clearly all residential, go ahead and put residential in here, but apply the business rules. So that's my thinking now, and I'm curious to hear what my colleagues think. Thank you.
Thank you, President Laredo. Joe, I just want to ask you, you did say that this was in a business use zone, but in the docket item, it says in a land, 10,000 blah, blah square feet of land in a district zone, single residence 3.
Yes, that would be a typo in the docket item.
More than a typo. That is a lot more than a typo. So it is not in land zone single residence 3. That is totally incorrect. We'll hear from everyone. I just want to respond quickly to some of President Laredo's points. And I agree with him that we're trying to be consistent. We're trying to look at this in a holistic way. We want plans submitted ahead. However, for me, we're talking about finalizing a landscape plan, which we do all the time, that we leave this up to a later decision. There was a landscape plan. There was a plant list even. It wasn't just little green circular blobs. Mr. Morris knows I'm not a fan of all those arborvitae, so I would actually prefer us not to be wedded to the plan that was submitted. I would like a little bit of work to go on that before it comes back to us. The curb cut actually does seem kind of like a graphic typo to me. They've discussed it. They're going to clean that up in the site plan. I personally do not have problems with either of those things voting on this project with the curb cut and the plant plan to be resolved perhaps on second call or conditional on planning approving them myself. In terms of the height of the building, I'd just like to address that for a second too. I think given the appearance of the facade and that corner situation and the busy corner and the businesses across the street, I myself don't have a problem with the height. I am inclined to be voting in favor of this tonight, so we'll see how everybody else feels. I just wanted to address some of the issues that President Laredo mentioned. Councilor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to talk about some of the good things about the project, Mr. Morris, if that's okay with you, okay? As you said in your presentation, and it's in the backup, the impervious surface for this lot, if I can find it, is decreasing by 3,100 square feet, from about 9,800 to 6,600 square feet. So that is a good thing. I like the fact that you are removing the 2 curb cuts from Lexington Street. Thank you, whoever helped me out. And there's only going to be one on River Street. The zoning relief to make this project possible is minimal. I think you're only asking for the allowance of residential on the ground floor to allow 3 stories and to allow buildings greater than 24 feet in height. I'll get to that in a sec. I like the fact that the parking is behind the townhomes. And I can't remember if it was on your presentation or if it was on planning's presentation, the curb cut on River Street, the sidewalk there that we saw is in desperate need of repair. And I was just wondering, is that something that will be cleaned up if this project is approved and developed?
Yes.
Thank you. I want to talk about the neighborhood communication. I was a little gray on how that meeting or meetings went. Were the neighbors supportive of the overall project, minus the whole neighborhood, not neighborhood, visitor parking?
Those people were in attendance, and they were principally some of the direct abutters. We're happy to see, obviously, the elimination of a deleterious building and site. And having lived through other proposals, they were pleased with the project.
Okay, good, because I vaguely remember hearing something about a hotel going in there and, okay, but this is just gonna be 4 units. So I think that's fine. Building height. You're at 37.8 feet. And as what Councilor Laredo was saying, that in the residential district, it's 36 feet in height. We've approved other projects like this. I keep referencing the one on Adam Street where it was a flat roof. I understand this is not a flat roof, but that flat roof was, I think, 32 or 33 feet. So I guess my question is, how come you can't bring down that third story a couple of feet?
As I said, because this is a corner lot, development on corner lots have often been granted some latitude with respect to height, giving it a more permanent look. I think everyone would agree that the architectural design of this picture is above average, to put it kindly. And I think that a lot of it is the roof line. You have the roof lines for the dormers in the front, and you have the main ridge line. If you start doing it, you might basically required to, I'm not an architect, but I don't know what impact it would have. And for 22 inches, I mean, it just seemed like it didn't need to be done, doesn't need to be done.
Okay, but just the third.
Where's the harm?
What?
Where is the harm?
No, I'm just asking, how come you couldn't bring it down so that you're at that 36 feet? It's only another 1.5 feet. I mean,
It might be about headroom inside. Again, we're not looking at those plans. It might be, as you're suggesting, that the pitch is more pleasant to look at a steeper pitch. That might be the design thing, but I think Councilor Lucas is saying, could you consider bringing it down a little bit? If it's about headroom and height, you can't. If it's about aesthetics, you
Not
could.
about headroom and height, no.
okay, all right. Well, I'll leave it at that. Other than that, I mean, just forget the height for a second. The project is fine. I remember when I was looking at this in the electronic posting board a few weeks ago, when I first saw the zoning review memo posted, I thought that the relief was minimal. The use of the commercial spaces right now are not thriving. I think you mentioned that in your presentation. So putting housing there seems fine, and considering what was being proposed before with the hotel, this would be better for the neighborhood. So I think the project's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lucas. Councilor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with many of the comments from my colleague from Ward 2 regarding the positive aspects of this proposal, particularly the replacement of that somewhat unattractive corner the way it is now. I remember years ago taking yoga at one of those little now empty storefronts. First of all, this is what I always ask now. Are there any elevation changes on in terms of what the current level of the lot is now? Are you planning to
No.
bring in fill
I think.
and build anything on a big hill?
No, we're not. It's just a flat site.
Okay. Okay. What are the size of these units?
2,500. 22 to 2,500 living space.
2,200 to 2,500 square feet? Okay. Is this an all-electric building?
Yes.
Oh, great. Would you consider adding more pervious surfaces along where in the parking area?
Yes.
Okay, and you would come back with a significantly improved landscape plan without the
Well,
arborvitae?
what I neglected to point out was that that plan includes native species. I'm surprised that Councilor Downs did not ask that question.
I saw the native species, but I saw the arborvitae too.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask more about, because you talked about integrating it into the neighborhood and primarily the neighborhood, the residential butters are on Lexington Street. So,
We leafleted Lexington Street. And I don't believe there were any neighbors from Lexington Street who showed up at the neighborhood meeting. They were mostly from River Street and James Street.
so I do feel the building's tall for the neighboring houses that are along that street are quite modest. There's a very small ranch kind of next to it, isn't it?
Ranch next to it?
Well, when you look, yeah, on Lexington Street,
Across the street or,
no, on the same side of the street.
oh, you,
What? Yes, that
I
one.
think we might have that. I think we might have.
Small, modest house.
Might have a glimpse. Lexington, the one that's 76.
I would just be, I just wanted, I think the potential impact on that home could be pretty significant for a 37-foot plus structure. You would kind of loom over it. What would be the distance between that property line and,
There we have, I don't think that's a one-story. You can see it there off to the right.
yeah, off to the right?
I think that's a two-story structure, I believe.
It's pretty small. It's a pretty
That's a
modest
garage.
house.
I think that's the garage you see.
No, I see the garage, but you could go to Google Maps and get a better view of it,
Okay.
which I did.
Counselor, it's
be-
set back 25.1 feet from the abutting property behind it on River Street.
So it's a pretty significant setback. The other thing is, I mean, this isn't before us, but did you look at putting in commercial spaces here at all? Because there is a successful business across the street. And it is a business zone, and I always like to see if we can keep some of our commercial spaces. Was that ever considered?
It wasn't largely because of the vacant storefronts that have been existing there for quite some time. The business that you're talking about, I think, is Jeep Pasquale's,
Yes.
who's also a client of mine. So I know that is a particular attractive use because it's a restaurant, which obviously generates a lot of traffic.
Right.
So no, we did not. To answer your question, there was no consideration of ground floor commercial. Because we don't, quite frankly, we don't think there was sufficient parking to
Okay.
accommodate that use.
Okay. And, well, there are no step downs, towards the residential side, like you were talking about the Trio project and how at the corner it is tall. And,
Right.
I do think that is a good point. But then you notice how Trios has a big step down as it moves, along, the Walnut Street side of it, where
Yeah, and I
the
do-
residential use is.
I do recall how that was arrived at. I think that was a contract with the neighbors behind. They took some massing off the back on Walnut Street, and they basically put it on the front. That's how it went from 4 to 5, if I recall correctly.
I think that sounds correct, yeah.
We don't have that kind of scenario here, given the design of the building and the proposed use.
And you were talking about putting in white plastic fencing?
I know you don't like white fences. The only alternative is to have something that's not vinyl, but it's something that's not wood either. What fibrous material? Yeah, what's the material? Material.
Oh, in the back.
My
Yeah,
client tells me that's going to be a cedar fence.
A cedar fence.
We like.
If I had known that in advance, I would have pointed it out, knowing your.
Okay, yeah,
adver- your-
it looks like it's in Vermont somewhere.
I don't know what all the green that it's floating on is here,
Yeah.
but I'm happy that that is not a white vinyl fence, that is a red. stone fence.
Remember that animated movie Up?
Well, that's, I'm,
So-
I'm a little ambivalent about voting on it tonight for some of the reasons that have already been mentioned by Councilor Laredo. So I'm gonna, but you've answered my question. Thank
I would hope, Councilor, that the positives about this outweigh the.
Overall, yes, I agree. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Block,
Thank you, Chair.
thanks for your patience.
Well, we're all being patient as best we can this evening. This is in my ward. I'm very familiar with this parcel and with this intersection. And I note that planning in its memo specifically recommended the petitioner reconsider the height, which several people have mentioned this evening. There's been some discussion about that. My own preference is that petitioner and planning continue to discuss about the height. And if they don't reach an accommodation, that be put in writing as to what the reasons are for disagreeing over the height. I also noted that planning has asked Transportation Division of Public Works for comments on the site design regarding traffic generation. This is not a matter of the percentage of traffic that will be affected by this development. It's more queuing and the difficulty that vehicles will have crossing the queues or joining the queues. Lexington and River Streets are major thoroughfares, generating very significant traffic at peak times. The fact that the commercial property has been largely vacant for some time means that we will really have to evaluate what the impact is going to be. It's not going to be negative. I'm sorry, it's not going to be a reduction in the traffic. There's going to be some impact. And I think we have to be very careful with intersections like this. This is also major intersection for pedestrians, especially children who have to cross Lexington to get a school bus on the other side. It's my preference that we hold this item. I think it needs some more work. I'd like to hear what planning or anybody really thinks about the considerations that we should take into account when we're making new developments that are at or extremely close to major intersections. Perhaps there is a tradition of allowing taller heights on corners, but we ought to consider perhaps new traditions that are more cautious and considering safety issues. I think we ought to come back to that. So those are my thoughts now. I will make a motion to hold at the proper time. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Downs?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will keep this brief. We always ask when we're doing the review of land use items whether the proposal is better than existing conditions. And I would essay to say, for many of the reasons that my colleagues in wards 1 and 2 and 3 elucidated, that this is. The traffic issues don't really bother me. in my ward, we have the Avalon development, which is 200 apartments on Needham Street, right near a very tricky intersection. And it frankly has not had anywhere near the traffic generation we worried about, nor has it been a major, the light on Needham Street that serves the Avalon development there is one of the only traffic signals in that area that is consistently a level of service A. In other words, there's no backup, which means there's not a lot of traffic going in and out of that site. If my colleagues want to hold this tonight, that's fine. I would rather, though, just vote it out, and I would vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Downs. Mr. Morris, did you want to say something?
I
quickly
did.
In there?
One reason why there was a long pregnant pause, Councilor Lucas, when you asked the question about why not reducing the height. Because my client and I had talked about that previously. I just conferred with him, and I want to make your life easier. He has said to me that he believes it's possible to reduce the height to 36 feet. I hope that Councilor Laredo will appreciate that. I know he had made the point about standards, and if we meet the 36-foot standard, I think that would come in more in line with what he's looking to achieve. I appreciate the positive comments that have been made about the project. We think it's a good one. And I don't want to put anybody, if you're going to hold it, then we will reduce the height of the building 36 feet. We can have that done quickly. I just hope you'll find a spot for us to come back to you sooner than the end of October.
36 feet or 36 inches?
36 feet.
It's a dollhouse. So you've shaved off more than a foot.
36 height.
Oh, 36 would be the height?
Right.
Yes.
I think you're close to 36 feet now.
Oh, they're at 37.
We're over.
so
We're over. We're gonna do
They're at
six.
37 and they've just shaved off more than a foot in light of the conversation we have tonight. Okay, Councilor Laredo.
So Attorney Morris and your client, thank you very much for that offer. I think that's very helpful. I'm not going to hang us up on the issue of whether we, on this project, insist that we shift to a residential zone rather than a business zone. You're working within the current rules and processes that we've engaged in the past. I do think, however, that for future discussion, it's an important discussion to have. I really do think it's very important to have, but I think we also have an obligation to be fair petitioners who are following a certain set of rules and guidelines now. I personally would like to take petitioner up on the offer to hold this, work out whatever changes need to get done so we can see that. And I certainly think it's quite fair, subject to the chair and the vice chair's scheduling, to try to get this back as soon as possible. If you're going to make changes, you get them to planning quickly. We turn it around, we get to act on it, and that's fair to everybody. So appreciate the offer. Thank you very much, Mr. Morris, and leave it at that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to get back to Councilor Block to finalize his motion. I would just like to say before we vote that, like Councilor Downs, I would be ready to vote this out tonight. I think that the improvement over current situations in terms of both the uses for housing and the appearance are greatly improved. That is a big, big improvement over what's there now. I would have no problem waiting to finalize the plant list or to clean up the site plan to show that that curb cut has been eliminated. I appreciate the cedar fence. I like the look of the wood shingles. I like the whole facade appearance. I would be ready to vote for this. If I vote against the hold, it's because I would rather vote in favor of it tonight. But let's get back to Councilor Block and see what motion he's going to make.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate all of the positive comments that several of the members of this committee have articulated. I share them. I think this needs a little more work, and I'm going to move to hold.
So I thought, so we're not going to make a motion to close the public hearing. We're going to take a vote on holding.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
No.
Counselor Farrell,
No.
Counselor Kelly,
No.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lovovitz,
No.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Laredo.
Aye.
Motion fails because it's 4-4.
Tie. It's a tie.
Okay.
So let's make another motion. Let's do something tonight. Counselor Lucas,
Motion to approve subject to second call.
let's vote on that. Oh. Oh, sorry. I thought we had already done that a long time ago. It must be getting very late. Counselor Lucas,
If we are going to move to approve subject to second call, I would also like to make another motion to close the public hearing.
that's a good point. I think I don't want to make that, I don't want to vote on closing the public hearing in case we don't vote on it, though. Can we close the public hearing after we vote on it?
Straw vote.
We have to close it. Okay.
Vote.
We will vote on that then. And you're right, we need to hear the findings and conditions. From planning. Sorry, no, I'm looking at you, but I mean planning.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Counselor Lobovitz.
So if it goes to second call, would it be the plan pretty much as is, or would it be with the condition that the height be reduced and the driveway become less
And the
impervious?
plan be reviewed.
And
It
the
would-
plantings?
Yeah, it would
is
be updates on everything we requested tonight at second call,
Okay, thank you.
is my understanding.
Thank you for the clarity.
I'm glad you
Counselor?
clarified that, Chair, because that was sort of, I wanted to make sure everything we discussed here was
Can I ask her?
included.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, so can I ask, is the committee hoping to see the reduction in height in the final potential approval, or?
Well, yes, the petitioner has agreed to that. I think if we're going to be approving it, it needs to be reflected in both writing and in the plan.
Just
Yeah.
the next council hearing is September 16th, so I'm not sure. That leaves the applicant enough time, but perhaps he can speak to that.
If we can't get it done within that time, then postpone the vote to the next hearing, but we're confident we may be able to accomplish that this week.
That would be terrific. Counselor President Laredo.
Look, I don't want to get hung up on this, but we do have a land use committee meeting on the 17th. Is there a reason we can't get this back here on the 17th to get this ironed out and then take it forward on the 6th of October? I mean, I'm just trying to be practical here. You got a council meeting Monday night. There's no way they're going to get their work done between now and Friday, and planning's going to have an opportunity to review this properly. So if all we're doing is postponing this in any event to October 6th, which is, I think, what we'd have to do, wouldn't it be much better institutionally to get our work done in committee so we can do this frankly on first call, not second call?
Yes,
Yes.
I agree. And I believe I'm hearing them say they can meet that timeline. And I think that makes sense.
But the caveat is, are you comfortable, Madam Chair, scheduling this for next week? I don't know what else you have in the docket. But I don't think this would take that long,
Right.
quite frankly. I mean, I think this would be quick.
Next week? Yeah. Well, it's a busy docket, but we've also gone over most of it tonight. I don't think we have to have a very full conversation at the
I
next
think
meeting.
we've had the conversation this
We just want
evening.
to see these changes reflected.
I'm just trying to simplify our full council meetings. I don't want us on second
I'm
call.
just trying to confirm, frankly, this is the person we need to confirm the dates with, Tariq and I. We have to do a vote to reconsider the hold? We voted against the hold. We're going to need another motion.
So
Counselor
I was
Lucas
just-
first and then Larry.
I was just gonna say the motion to hold failed, so that's why I made the motion to approve subject to second call. But if we can do another motion to hold, I will vote again for it.
Yeah, or you could withdraw that motion and just make another motion.
Motion to hold again.
So that we're clear on what we're going to vote on here. We're going to try and hold it and bring it up at the next land use committee meeting and then bring it to the full council. And what we're expecting to see are what I would consider relatively small changes, including a height reduction, including cleaning up that curb cut has been actually removed, and some revision, an update to the landscape plan. Yes, Councilor Lobovitz.
And the driveway being less impervious, I think they said that they would agree to that. Yes.
Showing some impervious surface on the driveway or the parking area.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that everybody? Let's see a nod. Okay, let's vote.
Counselor Block,
Let's try this again. Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrow,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lovovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Laredo,
Aye.
motion passes.
Okay, let's go
Madam
watch.
Chair, if I could express my thanks to the committee members for taking the time to deliberate. We'll be back.
You will.
Thank you.
And now we can all go watch the end of the debate. Thank you, everyone, for your patience.